Mm, Good morning. This is going to be a Divine Partnership coaching video. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, sharing. It definitely puts your energy into the collective that I channel for, and it helps me keep doing more videos like this, so if you enjoy them, thank you. I'm thinking this morning to do a couple of When Karmics Attack videos, and then maybe share a couple of powerful tips just for, well, relationships in general, but especially for twin flames. So please make sure to check out some of the other videos that I do. You never know what spirit cookie you might find in there. Anyways, it's just past sunrise right now. It's cloudy. It's rained. This is just after all the smoke cleared out in Washington from all the wildfires. And what's on my mind actually is love bombing, which I've kind of waffled a little bit, but it really does, at least a video of it belongs in the When Karmics Attack, because it really is, it's funny, there are so many things that we might think of as an attack, like with that word, it's very striking. And we don't often think about somebody showing us love as a form of attack, but it's important to recognize the difference between like genuine, unconditional, healthy love versus love, or rather limerence. It's good to look up, which is, it's like love like, and it's a manipulation tactic, or it's only done from fear, or, well, I was going to say, or from necessity, but if we feel like we have to do it from necessity, it's coming from fear. And love is faith, and faith is an absence of fear. And love doesn't keep. Love doesn't, if you, it, the best thing I can say is love bombing is usually a pattern of someone, and it usually comes from somebody who is caught in a cycle of extremes, and they usually have attachment challenges, maybe fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant. Most commonly, it's anxious avoidant, but and I speak on this partially from experience. I have been this person before. I have been with someone who is like this. I observe it all over the place. I have friends who have this happening, and I have coaching clients that either are, they have been this person, or they're with someone like this. And what happens often when we develop attachment traumas when we are younger and we carry them on into adulthood is that we end up kind of subconsciously viewing relationships as needing to be full of extremes. And usually the pattern is either you're extremely fighting and there's some sort of chaos going on all the time, or you're extremely loving. It's really more passionate, lustful. It's not even, to me, love is appreciation, it's gratitude, it's faith, and it's faithfulness. Like, not just not just like in a physical way. I mean, you can be polyamorous and still be completely faithful, and you can have a totally open, no strings attached relationship and still be completely faithful. Because for me, faith is believing in the best in the other person and knowing that they believe the best in you, and having faith in the relationship, in whatever dynamic that it's in, and having faith in them be to be able to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve, and having that faith in yourself and feeling that faith grow because of your interactions with that person. That's faithfulness. And it's appreciation. It's not always a big giant thing. It's not always gifts and giant acts of service or things like that. It's not always a ton of physical touch. It's, thank you for taking out the garbage every day. That's really great that you do that. I don't have to worry about it. Or, thank you for being you. Like, you're interesting, and even on your bad days, I appreciate you. And it's appreciation. It's, the adoration is in there too, telling somebody that you adore them. But I mean, it's little things, and often when you have somebody who is using love bombing, you don't see that stuff in there. Like, even if you see it occasionally, like you might see somebody go from like maybe you're in a really really big fight, and then within a few hours or within a day, suddenly they're not mad anymore, and they're making you dinner or buying you food, or they've cleaned up your that the bed and gotten all the laundry off of it, like you've been asking and asking and asking, or maybe they finally get the kids to pick up the toys, or like they do like this quick 360 swap, and suddenly they go from being almost like a terrifying uh, person that you got to walk on eggshells around and use kid gloves around, because they you might trigger them or fight them. It's funny, I see a rabbit that just popped out here and its little ears are shaking, right? Yeah, that almost becomes you when they're in that moment, and then suddenly, or maybe you're angry because you're like, oh my gosh, they just like this big fight just kicked up, and now I'm triggered, and oh, I don't want to deal with this, and then suddenly they're happy, or they're like, oh, let's just forget about it, like nothing's been resolved. It's probably an issue that's come up again and again, and in most cases it's an issue with them, and either you brought it, well, it's usually you bringing it up, it's usually you getting to the point to where either you erupt because if you're in a dynamic like that, you're also probably being too passive and codependent, and then you erupt, and then you try to say something before you erupt, and no matter what you do, they get really really upset, and then suddenly they're being very sweet, and you start to notice the cycle. And a lot of them, and the unfortunate thing is, a lot of men end up getting really trapped into this. And not that women don't, but like to have a woman who knows how to get you going sexually and get your body moving, like, biologically, men are they're pulled into that, and a lot of times they can confuse physical affection for actual love. That's kind of the limerence thing, is there. So when love bombing comes in, a lot of times there are a lot of manipulative women and karmic women that know that they can do that. There's plenty of men who do it too. So and those in and out of the binary that also do it, but it's often a quick way to pacify somebody or get them to be on your good side again, is to start being sexual. And if they notice that you're not that kind of person, then they might start keeping an eye on either like what former lovers have done for you, or they might try to do what you do for them and try to like imitate your love language, or they might start getting super touchy feely and suddenly want to like sit on your lap and do all this stuff with you, and try to keep all of your attention. And a, a lot of that, even it shows the insecurity in things, because somebody who is secure, if you've had a fight, and especially if it's been a repeating topic, they're more likely to hold a boundary of saying, you if you've really done something, they're more likely to say, this hurt my feelings when you did this, and I don't want to play with you until you make nice, until you say you're not going to do that, or you make up for it. And it's not that they'll hold a grudge or anything, but they're less likely to do a really strange 360 swap. And I want to say more like the more commonly with the toxicity, with when karmics attack, you're going to see that 360 swap more consistently. Like it'll be more wavering, like it would be like 1 minute you're fighting, and then an hour later they're being super sweet and they're talking to you about all the stuff you like, and then an hour later they're really mad again. But it can also, depending on whether or not they think that the relationship is somewhat secure, it could turn into like fighting for a whole weekend, and then during the week suddenly they're sweet, or fighting for a whole week and then suddenly the next week they're super sweet. And that's part of the unfortunate thing too, is when you get into longer patterns like that, they can often give the illusion, if they're able to uphold it for sometimes even just a day, if they've been really crappy to you, but like if they're able to uphold promises they make to change, or they're really love bombing you for like a week, it can really really pull you in, and you start to think that, oh, maybe they are changing. Maybe it was good that I held on. Maybe it was bad. And usually those are in the moments when you are so done. You are so, so done. And you're realizing that you've learned the karmic lessons and you're ready to be free from it. And then suddenly, it's kind of the universe coming in saying, are you sure you've learned that lesson? Are you sure? And if you haven't, you'll get pulled right back into it. And if you have, then you'll hold the ground. And if you hold that ground just a little bit longer, you're more than likely to see the full force of them come out. So here's what I can say. If you feel like somebody's love bombing you, and you want to, it sucks because really, if you're in a relationship where you feel like you're wanting or needing to test someone out in these ways, it usually shows that you are in a karmic relationship. But sometimes this is also with a twin flame who is acting karmic, or you are acting karmic. But the secure response is, it's not to take things so personally, but it's also not to be persuaded by sweetness when an issue has not been resolved, especially if your consent has been violated, if you are asking for a need to be met for you and or your children, and if it's, if it has to do with asking for like sobriety if they have an addiction, or to stop gambling, or to stop spending so much, things that really, they affect your whole environment, they affect how hard you have to work, things like that. If they're not doing that, and the issue has come up more than twice, because generally the rule I think of is that once is an accident, twice could be an accident, or you could give some grace because they're learning a new habit, but 3 times and they've chosen to do it. They've either chosen intentionally not to work on it, and oftentimes by choosing to say, oh, well, I have ADHD, or I have a brain problem, or I have this and this and this, which isn't, it isn't to say that there aren't real things like that, but even somebody that genuinely has a chronic or neurological condition, which I do myself. I have ADHD myself, and my kids have ADHD and autism. I don't want to get into ableism, but there's a difference between somebody who is explaining that they have a challenge in doing what you ask versus somebody who is using real or imagined situations to get out of having to do what it is you ask. And usually you can see that come up when they're love bombing you and you're like, hey, I still need you to resolve this issue with me. And then suddenly they're saying, oh, well, but I have this reason for you to not hold me accountable for that. That's how you can tell the difference in that. And if you find somebody that continues on in cycles like these, what you really want to look for is, are they consistently avoiding accountability and resolution and jumping into the love bombing and getting you all buttered up? Or are they actually resolving things? Are they actually showing empathy and remorse and things like that? If they're not, and they're just avoiding things and jumping in, you're likely being love bombed. And what one of the most beneficial things you can do in there is not accept it. Like, that doesn't, like, the hard thing is that if they can get you triggered, they can get the cycle going back again. But it's about you learning to have good boundaries. If you're in a cycle with somebody that is happening with, it's likely because Spirit's saying you need to work on your boundaries. And boundaries are not rules. They're not, it's not you telling the other person that they need to do something. It's you saying, okay, if A is happening and it's making me unhappy and it's toxic, then my response is B, to withdraw and work on things that do make me happy. That means, like, don't sit there and dwell on the crappiness of it, but yeah, like, don't give your full attention and affection and energy to somebody who is stomping on it. Don't be putting all of your love and light into somebody that is, like, knows that they're doing this stuff to you, and this is a regular cycle, and they're not ready yet to change that, because you're basically enabling them to continue it, and you're choosing pain over love when you do that. And the best thing to do is just to kind of withdraw your attention and verbalize it, be clear about it. When my consent is violated, I withdraw. I go to my own space, or I hang out with my friends, or I want to be alone. That, and I will hold that until I feel that the issue is resolved, and that I've seen proof that it's going to stay resolved, especially if this is an issue that's come up more than twice. And the likelihood is, if you're watching this video, the issues have come up way more than 3 times already. In any case, the longer that you can hold your boundary, the more you will see the other person reveal themselves. Now, if they really just needed a secure person in their life to really hold those boundaries and allow them to have their fits and come around, then they will. If, however, you are in a karmic relationship where it is not meant to continue on and you are simply meant to learn these lessons, it's very likely that you holding those boundaries will reveal in them kind of their inner demons. And as long as you hold the boundary and you work on your reactivity and your triggers, they will probably leave of their own volition, simply because they cannot manipulate or control you anymore, especially if the love bombing no longer works. Now, what I'd also recommend is that you check out plenty of other videos on how to have emotional security, and how to build that. I'm going to do some more videos myself, but there are lots of wonderful people on, I was going to say on Facebook, on YouTube, that already talk about it, and there's so much to learn. Just, don't focus so much on the other person, especially if you feel like you are either in a karmic relationship or you're with a twin flame who is being karmic. The whole key there is for you to focus on what makes you happy and work on getting your vibration up and your emotional maturity up. You are much less likely to be manipulated if they can't trigger you, or they can't win you over and butter you up after they've offended you and get you to not want to uphold your boundary, because it feels like then you won't get that affection and stuff. If you're in a dynamic that's you have to worry about not getting the affection and appreciation that you want regularly, especially if you uphold a boundary, you got a lot more problems in the relationship than you think. And learning to uphold those boundaries is either going to help correct that in the relationship, or it's going to help end that karmic relationship. And then you are free to pursue ones that do fulfill you, where your boundaries are respected, and easily, where you don't have to speak them 100 times, or you can say them once and they are remembered and respected. And you're allowed to change your mind later if trust is built or you want to explore that sort of thing. That's what you want to look for. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this When Karmics Attack video, and I will see you in the next video.